Alexander Chen stared at the legal documents spread across his mahogany desk, his jaw clenched tight. The words seemed to blur together, but their meaning was crystal clear. Marry within 30 days or lose everything he had worked for. "This is insane, grandfather," Alexander said into his phone, pacing behind his floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. "You can't just decide who I marry." Chairman Chen's voice crackled through the speaker as firm as steel. "I built this empire from nothing, Alexander. The Chen family name means something. This merger with the Wang family will secure our future for generations. But I don't love Linda Wang, I barely know her. Love?" His grandfather's laugh was cold. "Love is a luxury. Business is survival. You have until the end of the month or I will find someone else to take over the company." The line went dead. Alexander threw his phone onto the leather sofa and ran his hands through his hair. 26 years old, and his life was being decided by an 80-year-old man who still lived in the past. He had built the tech division of Chen Industries from the ground up. His innovations had increased their profits by 300% in just 5 years. But none of that mattered to his grandfather. All that mattered was tradition and family alliances. Alexander grabbed his jacket and headed for the elevator. He needed air. He needed to think. The city streets were quieter at midnight, but they were never completely empty. Alexander walked without direction, his mind racing through impossible solutions. He could refuse and start his own company, but the legal contracts he had signed meant he couldn't compete in the same market for 10 years. He could marry Linda Wang and live a lie for the rest of his life. Or he could find some other way out of this mess. That's when he saw her. A young woman was curled up on a park bench using a torn backpack as a pillow. Her dark hair fell across her face, and even in sleep she looked exhausted. Her clothes were clean but worn, and her shoes had holes that she had tried to cover with tape. Alexander stopped walking. An idea began forming in his mind. A crazy, desperate idea. He approached the bench carefully, not wanting to frighten her. "Excuse me." The woman's eyes flew open and she sat up quickly, clutching her backpack to her chest. "I'm not doing anything wrong," she said defensively. "I'll move if you want the bench." "No, that's not." Alexander held up his hands. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." "What's your name?" She studied his expensive suit and watch with suspicious eyes. "Why do you want to know?" "I have a proposition for you." A business proposition. Maya Rodriguez had been on the streets for 3 months, and she had learned to spot trouble from a mile away. Rich men who approached homeless women at midnight usually wanted only one thing, and it wasn't business. "I'm not interested in whatever you're selling," she said, standing up and shouldering her backpack. "Wait," Alexander said quickly. "I know how this looks, but I swear I'm not that kind of person. I need help, and I think maybe I can help you too." Something in his voice made Maya pause. He sounded genuinely desperate, which was strange coming from someone who obviously had money. "What kind of help?" she asked, keeping her distance. Alexander took a deep breath. This was either the smartest thing he had ever done or the stupidest. "I need a wife. Not a real wife, but someone to marry me legally. It would be temporary, maybe a year at most." Maya stared at him. "Are you out of your mind?" "Probably. But hear me out." Alexander sat down on the bench, trying to look less threatening. "My grandfather is forcing me to marry someone I don't want to marry. If I don't, I lose my inheritance and my job. But if I'm already married to someone else..." "He can't make you marry his choice," Maya finished. "Exactly." Alexander looked up at her hopefully. "I would pay you $50,000. You could get an apartment, get back on your feet. All you would have to do is pretend to be my wife at family events. We wouldn't even have to live together if you don't want to." Maya sat back down on the bench, her mind spinning. $50,000 was more money than she had ever imagined having. She could get a real place to live, buy decent clothes, maybe even go back to school. "Why me?" she asked. "You could marry anyone." Alexander was quiet for a moment. "Because you need the money and you won't fall in love with me. This has to be just business, no emotions involved." It stung a little, but Maya knew he was right. She was practical above all else. "What's the catch?" "There's always a catch." "No catch. We get married legally, you get paid, and after my grandfather accepts the marriage, we can get divorced quietly. Everyone wins." Maya studied his face in the dim streetlight. He looked honest, but then again, she had been fooled before. "How do I know you won't change the deal once we're married?" How do I know you're not some kind of serial killer? Alexander pulled out his phone and showed her his driver's license, his business card, and several news articles about Chen Industries. Alexander Chen, you can look me up online. My whole life is public record. Maya recognized the name. Chen Industries was huge. If this guy was telling the truth, he really was desperate. I need time to think about it, she said. We don't have time. The marriage license office opens in 6 hours. If we're going to do this, we need to do it tomorrow. The desperation in his voice convinced Maya more than anything else. Rich people didn't usually sound that scared. $50,000, she repeated. And I get my own room wherever we're staying. Yes, and food, clothes, whatever you need. Maya looked around the empty park, then back at the man who was offering to change her life completely. It was insane. It was dangerous. It was also the best offer she was likely to get. Okay, she said, but I want half the money up front. Alexander smiled for the first time that night. Deal. The next morning, Maya found herself standing in the courthouse wearing a simple white dress that Alexander had bought from a 24-hour store. It was the nicest thing she had worn in months. Are you sure about this? The clerk asked, looking between the obviously wealthy man and the nervous young woman. Yes, they both said at the same time. 2 strangers from the hallway agreed to be their witnesses. The ceremony took less than 10 minutes. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Alexander shook Maya's hand instead of kissing her. So what now? Maya asked as they walked out of the courthouse. Now I take you home, Alexander said, and we figure out how to convince my family that we're madly in love. Maya looked down at the simple ring on her finger. She was married to a millionaire she had met 12 hours ago. Her life had officially become stranger than any movie she had ever seen, but for the first time in months she wasn't worried about where she would sleep that night. And that was enough for now. Alexander's penthouse felt like a museum to Maya. Everything was perfectly arranged, from the leather furniture to the abstract paintings on the walls. She stood in the middle of the living room, still clutching her old backpack, unsure where she was allowed to touch anything. Your room is down this hall, Alexander said, walking past her without making eye contact. There's a bathroom attached. I put some basic clothes in the closet, but you can get whatever else you need. Maya followed him to a bedroom that was bigger than any place she had ever lived. The bed looked like it could fit 4 people, and there were floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the entire city. The kitchen is stocked with food. Help yourself to anything, Alexander continued in the same business-like tone he had used at the courthouse. I work long hours, so you probably won't see me much. Just try not to break anything expensive. I'm not going to break anything, Maya said, a little insulted. Alexander paused at the doorway. Right, sorry, I'm not used to this situation. After he left, Maya sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the room. It was beautiful, but it felt cold, like a fancy hotel room where she was just a temporary guest. She unpacked her few belongings into the massive walk-in closet, where Alexander had hung several dresses and casual clothes in her size. He had even bought underwear and pajamas, which was thoughtful but also embarrassing. The fact that a stranger had to buy her basic necessities reminded her of just how desperate her situation had been. The first few days passed awkwardly. Alexander left for work before Maya woke up and came home after she had gone to bed. They communicated through notes left on the kitchen counter. Coffee is in the top cabinet. Help yourself. Thank you for the clothes. They fit perfectly. Housekeeper comes on Thursdays. Don't worry, she's discreet. Maya spent her days exploring the penthouse and trying to figure out what she was supposed to do with herself. She had been working since she was 16, and the sudden lack of purpose made her restless. On Thursday morning, she met Rosa, the housekeeper, who was a kind woman in her 50s. So you're Alexander's new wife, Rosa said with a knowing smile. He didn't mention he was getting married. It was very sudden, Maya said carefully. Rosa nodded. The best ones always are. He's a good man, you know. Works too much, doesn't eat enough, but his heart is in the right place. How long have you worked for him? 5 years. Since he bought this place. Rosa lowered her voice conspiratorially. Between you and me, he needs someone to take care of him. All that money and success, but the boy doesn't know how to relax. That evening, Maya heard Alexander me home earlier than usual. She found him in his home office, staring at a computer screen that was completely frozen. Everything okay? She asked from the doorway. Alexander looked up, surprised to see her. The system crashed. I've been working on this presentation for hours and now I can't access any of my files. Maya approached his desk. Mind if I take a look? Alexander moved his chair aside skeptically. Maya sat down and began typing rapidly, her fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced ease. Where did you learn to do that? Alexander asked, watching her work. Community college before I... Maya trailed off. She didn't like talking about her past. I took some computer classes. Within minutes, she had not only recovered his files but also optimized his system's performance. You had a memory leak in your graphics driver. I also cleaned up some background programs that were slowing things down. Alexander stared at the screen, then at Maya. That would have taken my IT department hours to figure out. Maya shrugged. It's not that complicated once you understand how the system works. What else did you study in college? Business administration mostly. A little bit of everything, really. Maya stood up quickly. I should let you get back to work. But Alexander was looking at her with new interest. Actually, would you mind looking at something else? I've been trying to figure out why our user interface is getting so many complaints. Maya hesitated. I don't know anything about your business. You don't need to. Just tell me what you think as a regular person. Alexander pulled up the company's main software platform. Maya studied it for a few minutes, tilting her head as she navigated through different screens. It's too complicated, she said finally. You have 3 different menus that all do similar things, and this font is way too small. Also, why do I have to click through 5 screens just to change my password? Alexander looked at the screen with fresh eyes. You're right. We've been adding features for years without thinking about how confusing it might be for new users. The basic structure is good, Maya continued, getting more confident. But you need to simplify the layout. Maybe group related functions together, use bigger buttons, add some visual cues. She spent the next hour sketching out ideas on paper while Alexander listened intently. Her suggestions were practical and user-friendly, the kind of insights that came from someone who understood what it was like to struggle with complicated systems. This is brilliant, Alexander said, looking at her drawings. My team has been overthinking this for months. Maya felt a warm glow of pride. It had been a long time since anyone had called her ideas brilliant. The next morning, Alexander knocked on her bedroom door. I'm making breakfast. Want some? Maya found him in the kitchen, burning toast and cursing at the coffee machine. I think your coffee maker is broken, he said helplessly. Maya laughed. It's not broken. You're just using it wrong. She showed him how to properly operate the expensive machine, and soon they were sitting at the kitchen island with actual edible breakfast. I implemented some of your suggestions yesterday, Alexander said. My team was impressed. They want to know who came up with the ideas. You can't tell them it was me, Maya said quickly. They'll think it's weird that your wife is giving you business advice. Alexander paused with his coffee cup halfway to his lips. Is it weird? I don't know, is it? They looked at each other across the counter, both suddenly aware that their arrangement was becoming something different than what they had originally planned. My grandfather wants to meet you, Alexander said, changing the subject. There's a family dinner this weekend. Maya's stomach dropped. Already? He's suspicious about our sudden marriage. We need to convince him that we're really in love. How are we supposed to do that? We barely know each other. Alexander was quiet for a moment. Maybe we should spend some time actually getting to know each other then. Over the next few days, they began talking during their shared meals. Alexander told her about growing up with enormous pressure to succeed, about never feeling like he was good enough for his grandfather's impossible standards. Maya shared carefully edited stories about foster care and community college, leaving out the darker details. They discovered they both loved old movies and terrible reality TV shows. Alexander had never learned to cook anything more complicated than scrambled eggs. Maya had taught herself to play piano on a keyboard she had found in a thrift store. You're not what I expected, Alexander admitted one evening as they watched a cooking competition show. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more desperate, I guess. Someone who would be grateful and quiet and not challenge me on anything. Maya raised an eyebrow. Sorry to disappoint you. You didn't disappoint me. You surprised me. There's a difference. Meanwhile, across town, Chairman Chen was having his own conversation with a private investigator named Detective Liu. I want to know everything about this girl my grandson married, the old man said, sliding a check across his desk. Something doesn't add up. Alexander has never been impulsive about anything in his life, and suddenly he marries a complete stranger? Detective Liu pocketed the check. I'll start with basic background information. Full report within the week. As he left the Chen Industries building, Detective Liu had no idea that his investigation would uncover secrets that would change everything for the family he was working for. Back in the penthouse, Maya was helping Alexander practice for the family dinner, teaching him how to hold her hand naturally and what kind of things a loving husband might say about his wife. Neither of them noticed how easy it was becoming to pretend they cared about each other, or how much it didn't feel like pretending anymore. The family dinner was held at Chairman Chen's mansion, a sprawling estate that made Alexander's penthouse look modest. Maya smoothed down her new dress nervously as their car pulled up the circular driveway. Remember, Alexander said quietly, we've been secretly dating for 6 months. We fell in love when you were working at a coffee shop near my office. Got it. And we got married quickly because you couldn't bear to wait any longer, Maya replied, practicing her fake smile. Try to look less terrified. People in love are supposed to be happy. Maya shot him a look. Easy for you to say. You're not about to lie to your entire family. Alexander took her hand as they walked up the marble steps. His palm was sweating. We're both lying. We're in this together. Chairman Chen answered the door himself, a tall man in his 80s with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. He studied Maya from head to toe without speaking. Grandfather, this is my wife, Maya, Alexander said, his arm around her waist. So you're the woman who stole my grandson's heart so quickly, Chairman Chen said in accented English. His tone was polite but cold. It's an honor to meet you, sir, Maya replied, offering her hand. Instead of shaking it, Chairman Chen took her hand and turned it over, examining her palm. Interesting. You have working hands. Not like most young women today. Maya pulled her hand back, unsure if she had just been complimented or insulted. Dinner was an uncomfortable affair. Alexander's aunt and uncle peppered Maya with questions about her family, her job, her education. Maya stuck to their rehearsed story, but she could feel Chairman Chen watching her every move. Where did you say you grew up? Alexander's aunt asked over the main course. Different places, Maya said vaguely. My mother moved around a lot when I was young. What was your mother's name? Chairman Chen asked suddenly. Maya froze for a moment. They hadn't prepared for that question. Elena, she said truthfully. Elena Rodriguez. Something flickered across Chairman Chen's face, but it was gone so quickly that Maya wasn't sure she had seen it. After dinner, Chairman Chen asked to speak with Alexander privately. Maya waited in the living room, studying the family photos on the mantelpiece. Most were formal portraits, but one caught her attention. It showed a much younger Chairman Chen with a beautiful woman with dark hair and warm eyes. There was something familiar about the woman's face. That was taken many years ago, said a voice behind her. Maya turned to find Chairman Chen standing in the doorway. She's beautiful, Maya said politely. Yes, she was. Chairman Chen moved closer to the photo. Her name was Elena. She was my business partner. And much more than that. Maya's heart started beating faster. What happened to her? She disappeared. 25 years ago. Took her baby daughter and vanished without a trace. Chairman Chen's eyes were sad. I never found out why. Maya stared at the photo, her mind racing. Her mother's name had been Elena, and she would be 25 years old in a few months. I should go find Alexander, Maya said weakly. Yes, Chairman Chen said. You should. The drive home was quiet. Alexander seemed lost in thought, and Maya was trying to process what she had learned. It was probably just a coincidence. Elena was a common name. Lots of women disappeared from their old lives, but the nagging feeling in her stomach wouldn't go away. Back at the penthouse, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the woman in the photograph and the sadness in Chairman Chen's eyes. Around midnight, she got up and wandered to Alexander's home office, hoping to distract herself with some work. Alexander had left several file folders on his desk. Maya knew she shouldn't look through his personal papers, but one folder was labeled Family History, and curiosity got the better of her. Inside were old business documents, newspaper clippings, and financial records dating back decades. Most of it was about Chen Industries' early days, but then Maya found something that made her blood run cold. It was a partnership agreement from 25 years ago, between Chen Industries and Vasquez Holdings. The document was signed by Chairman Chen and Elena Maria Vasquez. Maya's hands were shaking as she read through the papers. Elena Vasquez had owned 40% of what was now Chen Industries. According to the documents, she had invested her family's money to help Chairman Chen expand his small electronics business into the empire it was today. There were also personal letters mixed in with the business papers. Love letters written in Chairman Chen's careful handwriting. "My dearest Elena," one began, "I cannot wait until we can make our partnership official in every way. You and baby Maria are my whole world." Maya dropped the letter as if it had burned her. Maria. Her legal name was Maria Elena Rodriguez, but she had gone by Maya since childhood because it was easier for other people to pronounce. Her mother had never talked about Maya's father or their life before the accident. Maya had always assumed her mother was running from something dangerous, maybe an abusive relationship. She had never imagined her mother might have been running from a fortune. Maya spent the rest of the night going through every document in the folder. By dawn, she had pieced together a story that changed everything she thought she knew about her life. Her mother, Elena Vasquez, had been more than Chairman Chen's business partner. They had been engaged, but something had happened 25 years ago that made Elena disappear with their baby daughter. The business documents showed that Elena's 40% stake in the company had never been transferred to anyone else. Legally, it still belonged to her estate, which meant it now belonged to Maya. Meanwhile, across town, Detective Liu was having his own shocking discoveries. He had spent a week digging into Maya Rodriguez's background, expecting to find evidence of gold digging or criminal activity. Instead, he had found something much more interesting. Maya Rodriguez was really Maria Elena Vasquez. Her mother had died in a car accident when Maya was 5 years old. Maya had spent her childhood in foster care, aging out of the system at 18 with no family and no resources. But the most shocking discovery was in the old court records. Elena Vasquez had legally changed her and her daughter's names before disappearing. Before that, they had lived in the same city where Chairman Chen had built his business empire. Detective Liu cross-referenced the dates and addresses. Elena Vasquez had vanished exactly 3 days after Chairman Chen had announced his engagement to another woman. A woman chosen by his traditional parents to secure a business alliance. The private investigator stared at his computer screen, hardly believing what he was seeing. Alexander Chen hadn't married a random homeless woman. He had married the daughter of his grandfather's lost love, the woman who legally owned 40% of Chen Industries. This was either the biggest coincidence in history or the most complicated revenge plot ever conceived. Detective Liu reached for his phone to call Chairman Chen, then stopped. This kind of information was dangerous. It could destroy families or create them. It could make Maya incredibly wealthy, or put her in serious danger from people who wouldn't want to give up their control of the company. He decided to dig deeper before making his report. Some secrets were worth keeping until you understood all the consequences of revealing them. Back at the penthouse, Maya was still sitting in Alexander's office when he found her that morning. She was surrounded by papers, her eyes red from crying. "Maya, what are you doing in here?" Alexander asked, then saw the documents spread across his desk. His face went pale. "Those are private family papers. My mother's name was Elena Vasquez," Maya said quietly, not looking up at him. "Not Rodriguez. I found the partnership agreements. I found the letters." Alexander sank into the chair across from his desk. "I don't understand." Maya finally looked at him, her eyes filled with hurt and confusion. "Did you know? When you asked me to marry you, did you know who I really was?" "No," Alexander said firmly. "I swear to you I had no idea. I've never even heard my grandfather mention Elena Vasquez." They stared at each other across the desk, both realizing that their fake marriage had just become incredibly complicated. "So what happens now?" Maya asked. Alexander looked at the papers scattered between them. Financial documents that proved Maya was legally entitled to nearly half of everything his family owned. "Honestly don't know," he said. The silence in Alexander's office stretched on for what felt like hours. Maya stared at the partnership documents while Alexander tried to process what this meant for both of them. 40%, Maya said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "My mother owned 40% of your family's company." Alexander nodded slowly. "According to these papers, yes. But Maya, you have to know that I didn't plan this. I had no idea who you were when I asked you to marry me. But your grandfather did, Maya said, anger creeping into her voice. He recognized my mother's name at dinner. I saw the look on his face. Before Alexander could respond, his phone rang. Chairman Chen's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer it, Maya said quickly. I have to. He's probably suspicious already after last night. Alexander hesitated, then picked up the call. Good morning, grandfather. Come to my office immediately. Chairman Chen's voice was sharp. And bring your wife. The line went dead. Maya and Alexander looked at each other with growing dread. We don't have to go, Alexander said. We could pack your things and leave right now. Maya shook her head. I need to know the truth. All of it. An hour later, they sat across from Chairman Chen in his massive office. The old man looked like he had aged 10 years overnight. Detective Liu stood beside his desk with a thick folder in his hands. Maria Elena Vasquez, Chairman Chen said quietly, using Maya's real name. You look just like your mother. Maya's hands were clenched so tightly in her lap that her knuckles were white. So you did know who I was. Not at first. But when you said your mother's name was Elena, Chairman Chen opened an old photo album and turned it toward them. This was taken a few weeks before you were born. The photograph showed a younger Chairman Chen with a pregnant woman who looked exactly like Maya. They were both smiling, his hand resting protectively on her belly. She was the love of my life, Chairman Chen continued. We were going to be married. We were going to raise you together and build an empire as a family. Then why did she run away? Maya asked, her voice breaking. Chairman Chen's shoulders sagged. Because I was a coward. My parents threatened to disown me if I married a woman they hadn't chosen. They said our business would fail without their connections and support. So I agreed to marry someone else, thinking I could convince Elena to wait. To be patient. But she wouldn't wait, Alexander said, beginning to understand. She came to me 3 days before my arranged wedding. She was holding you in her arms, just 2 months old. She begged me to choose her, to choose our family. And Chairman Chen's voice broke. I told her I couldn't. I told her my duty was to the family business. Maya stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. So she took me and disappeared because the man she loved chose money over us. I've regretted that decision every day for 25 years, Chairman Chen said. I hired investigators, I searched everywhere, but your mother was smart. She changed both your names, moved far away. I never found you. Detective Liu cleared his throat. There's more, sir. Maya has been living on the streets for 3 months. She aged out of foster care with no family and no resources. The color drained from Chairman Chen's face. Foster care? My mother died when I was 5, Maya said coldly. Car accident. I spent the next 13 years being shuffled between families who didn't want me. And you want to know the worst part? She never told me about you. She never told me I had family who might have cared. If I had known. But you didn't know because you chose to let us go. Maya's voice was rising. And now you want me to what? Be grateful? Pretend like everything is okay? Alexander reached for her hand, but Maya pulled away from him too. And you, she said, turning to face him. How do I know this whole thing wasn't planned? How do I know you didn't seek me out because of who I really am? Because I was just as shocked as you are, Alexander said desperately. Maya, please, you have to believe me. I don't have to believe anything. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what's real anymore. Did you marry me because you needed a fake wife or because you somehow knew I was worth millions? Maya, don't. She backed toward the door. I need time to think. I need time away from all of this. Before anyone could stop her, Maya was gone. Alexander found her 3 hours later at the park where they had first met. She was sitting on the same bench, but this time she looked completely defeated rather than defiant. I called in sick to work, Alexander said, sitting down beside her. Figured we both needed the day off. Maya didn't look at him. Your grandfather wants me to take a DNA test. To prove I'm really Elena's daughter. Are you going to do it? I don't know. Part of me wants to prove it, to claim what my mother should have had. But another part of me just wants to disappear again. They sat in silence for a while, watching people walk by with their normal, uncomplicated lives. I keep thinking about what you said that first night, Maya said eventually. About how I wouldn't fall in love with you because this was just business. Alexander's heart started beating faster. Maya, but I did fall in love with you, she continued. Somewhere between fixing your computer and teaching you how to make coffee and pretending to be your wife, it stopped being pretending. And now I don't know if any of it was real. Alexander turned to face her fully. It was real. Everything between us has been real. I fell in love with you too, Maya. Not because you're Elena's daughter or because you own part of my family's company. I fell in love with you because you're brilliant and strong and you make me want to be a better person. How can I believe that when everything started with a lie? Because I'm willing to give up everything to prove it to you. Alexander took her hands in his. I'll walk away from the company. I'll give up my inheritance. We can move somewhere else and start over with nothing. Maya finally looked at him. You would do that? If it's the only way to prove that I love you for who you are, then yes. Meanwhile, back at Chen Industries, Chairman Chen was dealing with a crisis of his own. Word had somehow leaked about Maya's true identity, and several business rivals were already trying to contact her with offers to buy her shares in the company. Sir, his secretary announced over the intercom, Vincent Wu from Wu Corporation is here to see you. Vincent Wu was Chairman Chen's biggest competitor, a man who had been trying to take over Chen Industries for years. He walked into the office with a smug smile. Congratulations on finding your long-lost goddaughter, Vincent said, not bothering with pleasantries. I'm sure you're thrilled that she owns 40% of your company. What do you want, Vincent? I want to make a deal with the girl. 40% of Chen Industries is worth about $800 million. I'm prepared to offer her $1 billion cash for her shares. Chairman Chen stood up slowly. You want to buy her out so you can take control of my company? It's business, nothing personal. The girl has been homeless, living on the streets. Do you really think she's going to turn down $1 billion to play happy family with the man who abandoned her mother? After Vincent left, Chairman Chen sat alone in his office staring at the photo of Elena and baby Maya. He had lost Elena 25 years ago because he chose business over love. Now he was in danger of losing Maya the same way. His phone buzzed with a text message from Alexander. We need to talk. All of us. There are things Maya needs to know before she makes any decisions. Chairman Chen closed his eyes and realized that this time, he was going to have to choose love over business, even if it meant losing everything he had spent his life building. The question was whether Maya would give him that chance, or if the mistakes of the past would destroy their future before it could even begin. Outside, Maya and Alexander were walking back toward his car, their hands intertwined. Neither of them knew that their one-year contract was about to become the least of their problems. Maya spent the next 3 days staying with Rosa, the housekeeper, who had offered her spare bedroom without asking any questions. Alexander called and texted constantly, but Maya needed space to figure out what she wanted to do with her life now that everything had changed. On Thursday morning, she received an unexpected visitor. Vincent Wu arrived at Rosa's small apartment with 2 bodyguards and a briefcase full of contracts. Miss Vasquez, he said with an oily smile, I'm here to make you very wealthy. Maya studied the contracts he spread across Rosa's kitchen table. $1 billion in exchange for her 40% stake in Chen Industries. It was more money than she had ever dreamed of having. Why are you offering me so much? Maya asked. If my shares are only worth $800 million, why pay more? Vincent's smile widened. Because with your shares combined with the 15% I already own, I'll control the majority of the company. Chen Industries will finally be mine. And what happens to Alexander and his grandfather? They'll be removed from leadership, of course, but they'll still be wealthy. Everyone wins. Maya closed the contracts and handed them back to him. No deal. Vincent's friendly expression vanished. Miss Vasquez, you've been living on the streets. You have nothing. This money could set you up for life. I said no. After Vincent left, Rosa brought Maya a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. You know that boy loves you, right? Alexander. I've worked for him for 5 years, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. How can I be sure it's not just about the money? Because he called me crying yesterday, Rosa said with a gentle smile. Grown man, crying like a baby because he was afraid he'd lost you forever. Men don't cry over money, Mija. They cry over love. That evening, Maya finally answered one of Alexander's calls. Thank God, he said when he heard her voice. Maya, we need to talk. There are things about your mother that you don't know. Things that might help you understand why your grandfather made the choices he did. Alexander, I'm tired of secrets and surprises. This isn't a secret. It's something I just found out myself. Can you meet me at the office tonight? There's someone who wants to talk to you. Against her better judgment, Maya agreed. She found Alexander waiting for her in the Chen Industries lobby with an elderly woman she didn't recognize. The woman had kind eyes and was clutching an old photo album. "Maya, this is Mrs. Patterson," Alexander said. "She was your mother's best friend." Mrs. Patterson stepped forward with tears in her eyes. "You look just like Elena did at your age. I've been hoping to find you for 20 years. They went upstairs to Chairman Chen's office, where the old man was waiting with Detective Liu and several boxes of documents and photos. "Before you make any decisions about your future," Chairman Chen said quietly, "you deserve to know the whole truth about your mother." Mrs. Patterson opened her photo album and began telling Maya stories she had never heard. How Elena had been a brilliant businesswoman who had inherited money from her own family's successful restaurant chain. How she had met Chairman Chen when they were both young entrepreneurs trying to make their mark on the world. "Your mother wasn't just his business partner," Mrs. Patterson explained. "She was his equal in every way. Her ideas and her money helped build Chen Industries from nothing." "Then why did she agree to disappear when he chose his arranged marriage?" Maya asked. Chairman Chen answered this time. "Because I told her I would fight for her after the wedding. I promised her I would divorce my arranged wife and come back to her. I asked her to wait for me." "But she didn't trust you to keep that promise," Maya said, understanding. "She was right not to trust me. I was weak. After my arranged marriage, my new wife became pregnant immediately. I couldn't leave her then. I kept making excuses, kept asking Elena to be patient." Mrs. Patterson pulled out a letter from the album. "Your mother wrote this to me the night before she disappeared. She said she couldn't watch the man she loved choose duty over love again and again. She said she was taking you somewhere safe, where you could grow up without the burden of knowing about the family that didn't want you." Maya read the letter with shaking hands. In her mother's careful handwriting, she found the truth she had been searching for her whole life. "She loved you so much," Mrs. Patterson continued. "Everything she did was to protect you from the pain of rejection. She thought it was better for you to grow up believing your father was unknown than to know he had chosen not to fight for you." Chairman Chen wiped his eyes with a trembling hand. "Your mother was protecting you from my cowardice, and now I understand why she never told you about us. She was afraid I would disappoint you the same way I disappointed her." "The car accident," Maya said suddenly. "How did it really happen?" Detective Liu cleared his throat. "Your mother was driving to see a lawyer about claiming her shares in the company. She had decided to fight for your inheritance. The accident happened on the way to that meeting." Maya sat in stunned silence, processing everything she had learned. Her mother had been trying to secure Maya's future when she died. She had been planning to claim what was rightfully theirs. "I want to see the company," Maya said finally. "I want to understand what my mother helped build." Over the next week, Maya toured every department of Chen Industries. She met employees, studied financial reports, and learned about the company's operations. Alexander showed her everything without trying to influence her decisions. What she found surprised her. Chen Industries wasn't just a tech company anymore. It had grown into a corporation that employed thousands of people and supported their families. Shutting it down or selling it to Vincent Wu would destroy lives. But she also found problems. The company had grown so focused on profits that it had stopped innovating. Employee satisfaction was low. The environmental impact was terrible. "I want to call a board meeting," Maya announced to Alexander and Chairman Chen on Friday evening. "Maya, you don't have to do anything yet," Alexander said. "Take all the time you need to decide." "I've already decided." The board meeting was scheduled for Monday morning. Vincent Wu arrived with his lawyers, expecting Maya to sign his contracts. Instead, she stood at the head of the conference table with her own legal documents. "I am claiming my inheritance as Elena Vasquez's daughter and heir," Maya announced to the shocked room. "Effective immediately, I own 40% of Chen Industries." Vincent stood up angrily. "You're making a mistake, Miss Vasquez. You could be a billionaire by the end of the day." "I am a billionaire," Maya replied calmly. "And I'm also the new co-CEO of this company." She turned to face Chairman Chen. "I accept your offer to join the family business, but I have conditions. We're going to restructure everything. Environmental sustainability, employee welfare programs, and innovation research will be our top priorities." Chairman Chen smiled for the first time in weeks. "I accept your conditions." Maya then turned to Alexander. "And I'm dissolving our marriage contract. Not because I want to end our marriage, but because I want to start over with the truth." She pulled out a ring box and got down on one knee in front of the entire board of directors. Alexander Chen, will you marry me for real this time? Not for business or convenience or inheritance, but because I love you and I want to build a life together? Alexander's face broke into a huge grin. Yes, absolutely yes. 6 months later, Maya and Alexander had their real wedding in the same park where they had first met. Instead of a fancy venue, they chose to have the ceremony outdoors where Maya could invite the homeless shelter volunteers and foster kids she now mentored. Chairman Chen walked Maya down the aisle, tears streaming down his face. In his wedding speech, he thanked Elena's spirit for giving him a second chance to choose love over duty. Maya had used part of her inheritance to start a foundation for homeless youth and aged-out foster children. Alexander had stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus on innovation and product development, letting Maya lead the company's transformation. Chen Industries became the most socially responsible corporation in their industry, proving that doing good and making money weren't mutually exclusive. As Maya and Alexander danced at their reception, surrounded by family both old and new, she thought about her mother's letter. Elena had written that she hoped Maya would grow up knowing she was loved and valued for who she was, not for what she could provide to others. Looking around at the faces of people who genuinely cared about her, Maya knew her mother's wish had finally come true. She had found her family, her purpose, and her home. And this time it was real.